Why do gas prices randomly spike?
Why does my rent go up but the paycheck doesn't?
Why does the stock market go wild every time someone in a suit says something on TV?
These are all common questions, but here's the thing. It's not just economics, it's politics. And the connection between the two? It's way deeper than you think.
Level up.
When people hear economy, they think of money, jobs, prices, stocks. That's true. But behind every number, there's a political decision driving it. Politics is the one who gets to make the rules, while the economy is what happens when those rules hit real life. When a government decides to raise taxes, that affects businesses, your paycheck, and even the price of pizza. When they cut taxes, that could boost the stock market, but might balloon the national debt. When do they approve stimulus checks or cancel student loans? That's a political decision with huge economic ripples. Imagine the economy as a massive machine, and politics is the control room. Every election, law, or budget tweak flips a switch. And the craziest part? You feel those switches whether you voted or not, whether you watch the news or avoid it. Even if you're not into politics, politics are definitely into you. Politics drive the economy. Understand it, and you will understand your future. All right. Now that we know politics drive the economy, let's take a look at one of the biggest gears in that machine, fiscal policy. Sounds boring? Don't tap out yet, because fiscal policy decides if your taxes go up, if your public school gets funded, and if your paycheck stretches to the end of the month. But what is this fiscal policy? It represents the use of government spending and taxation to influence a country's economy, and it's decided by lawmakers, like Congress or Parliament. Governments use fiscal policies to promote economic growth, control inflation, reduce unemployment, and stabilize the economy. There are two main types: expansionary fiscal policy, which is when government spending increases or taxes are cut to stimulate the economy during slowdowns or recessions, and contractionary fiscal policy, which is when government spending is reduced or taxes are raised to cool down inflation or reduce public debt. Basically, when the economy isn't doing well, like when people don't have jobs or stores aren't selling much, the government can spend more money or lower taxes so people have more to spend. That helps the economy get better. But if prices are getting too high and money is losing value, the government might spend less or raise taxes to help calm things down. Now that we know what the fiscal policy is, what does government spending represent? That's the money your government puts into the economy, on things like roads, schools, military, hospitals, even stimulus checks. When spending goes up, money flows, jobs are created, people buy more stuff, businesses grow. That's why you hear politicians say, we're investing in the future. But here's the flip side. If governments spend too much without raising enough in taxes, they rack up debt. And that can lead to inflation, interest rate hikes, or cuts to services later on. You want free college and better healthcare? Great. But someone's got to pay for it. And that brings us to taxes. Taxes are the other side of the fiscal coin. Who pays what, how much, and why? It's all decided by politicians. Cutting taxes might boost business confidence and consumer spending. Sounds great, right? But cutting taxes also means less money for public services, unless the economy magically grows fast enough to cover the gap. Remember the 2017 US tax cuts? Corporations saw record profits, but critics say most of the benefits went to the top, while the national debt exploded. In politics, every dollar saved by one group is often a dollar lost by another. So, fiscal policy is all about choices: spend or save, tax or cut. These choices shape everything, from your local school budget to national economic growth. And every time you vote, you're choosing the people who will make those trillion-dollar decisions. Monetary policy. While fiscal policy is handled by governments, monetary policy is usually managed by a country's central bank, like the Federal Reserve in the US, and it's supposed to be independent from politics. Monetary policy is the process by which a country's central bank controls the money supply and interest rates to keep the economy stable and healthy. It is all about controlling the flow of money, and it mostly works through interest rates. The main goals of monetary policy are to keep prices stable to control inflation, help people stay employed, and encourage economic growth. Like the fiscal policy, there are two types of monetary policy: expansionary and contractionary. When a central bank lowers interest rates, borrowing becomes cheap. That means more people buy homes, start businesses, and spend more. But when inflation starts creeping up or sprinting up, Central banks raise interest rates to cool things down. That makes loans more expensive, slows spending, and ideally brings prices back under control. That's exactly what we saw after the COVID era. Low rates pumped up the economy fast, but inflation got way out of hand. So central banks had to slam on the brakes. Imagine the central bank has a magic money faucet. If the economy is slow, they turn the faucet on, putting more money into the system and making it easier to borrow money. That helps people buy more stuff and businesses grow. If the economy is going too fast and prices get too high, they turn the faucet down, making money harder to borrow so things slow down a bit. Now here's the twist. Central banks are supposed to be neutral. No political pressure, no playing favorites. But is it really? Politicians often want low rates, especially before elections. It makes the economy feel strong, unemployment low, and voters happy. In the 1970s, US presidents quietly pressured the Fed to keep rates low. The result? An inflation crisis that lasted years. It's a delicate balance. Do too little, and inflation soars. Do too much, and you cause a recession. And guess what? That tightrope walk impacts your job prospects, your rent, your credit card rates, everything. So when you hear phrases like rate hike or quantitative easing, don't zone out. That's monetary policy in action. And just like fiscal policy, it's shaping your financial life, whether you like it or not. Let's talk about the most chaotic political event of them all, elections. Every 4 or 5 years, or sometimes sooner, we roll the dice. New leaders, new policies, new priorities. And the economy? It holds its breath. Why? Because elections bring uncertainty. And if the economy hates one thing, it's not knowing what happens next. As soon as polls start shifting, so do markets. Stocks rise or fall based on who's ahead. One candidate promises lower corporate taxes, investors start buying. Wall Street isn't red or blue, it's green, and it's always trying to predict who will help companies make the most money. Leading up to elections, volatility spikes, companies delay big decisions, investors get jittery, and people hold off on spending until the dust settles. But it's not just markets. Businesses shift strategy based on election results. If a progressive government wins, companies might prepare for higher regulations or labor costs. If a conservative one wins, they might expect tax cuts or fewer rules. Entire industries like healthcare, energy, and finance can see their futures rewritten overnight. Think of elections like economic earthquakes. Even if the quake hasn't hit yet, people start reinforcing buildings. The best example would be Romania's intense 2024 to 2025 election cycle, when the country faced local, parliamentary, presidential, and European elections within months of each other. The political landscape became unpredictable, and the economy reacted. Investors grew cautious as polls shifted between major parties. Uncertainty over future tax policies, EU relations, and spending priorities led to delayed business decisions and market hesitation. Key sectors paused or reassessed projects, waiting to see which direction the new leadership would take. Foreign investors closely monitored developments, knowing that Romania's political outcomes would influence everything from regulations to public investment. Even before the final votes were counted, the economic impact was already visible. Volatility increased, spending slowed, and long-term planning froze. It was a clear reminder that in politics, uncertainty shakes the economy, even before power officially changes hands. So, next time there's an election, don't just watch for the winner. Watch how businesses, banks, and buyers react. Because when the political winds change, your finances can shift with them. Now let's zoom out, because the economy you live in isn't just shaped by your country's politics. It's shaped by global politics, trade wars, military conflicts, alliances, sanctions. These aren't just headlines. They can ripple through your bank account. Take wars, for example. When countries go to conflict, oil prices often spike. Supply chains get disrupted. Companies face uncertainty. The economies of neighboring countries fall, and unfortunately, you have to pay the price at the pump and grocery store. And even if your country isn't directly involved, global markets are connected. A crisis halfway across the world can send shockwaves to your doorstep. Trade agreements open doors for businesses, lower prices, and create jobs. But tariffs and sanctions, they can slam those doors shut. For example, when the US and China imposed tariffs on each other, certain goods got more expensive. Factories moved, stocks dipped, and consumers felt the pinch. Politics on the global stage is a high-stakes game, and the economy is the scoreboard. So, what's the big takeaway? Politics is the economy. It's the invisible hand behind every price tag, every paycheck, every boom and bust. If you want to understand your money, your job, your future, you've got to understand the political game. All right, theory's great, but let's get real. Let's look at some stories you've probably lived through. 1. Oil prices and political conflict. Remember when gas prices suddenly soared in 2022? That wasn't just random. It was tied to the war between Russia and Ukraine, a major global event with political roots that sent oil prices sky high. Higher oil prices mean higher costs for almost everything: food, transport, heating. So even if you never followed that conflict, you felt it every time you filled your tank or bought groceries. 2. Tax cuts and the stock market. Here's another: the 2017 US tax cuts. When the government cut corporate taxes, the stock market jumped. Big companies made record profits, and CEOs got bonuses. But did that trickle down to workers? Not so much. Wage growth stayed slow, and many everyday folks didn't feel the boost in their paychecks. 3. Healthcare policy. Healthcare's another perfect example. When politicians debate healthcare laws, millions feel the impact. Expanding or cutting healthcare coverage changes who gets treatment, how much it costs, and how healthy a nation stays. Decisions in Washington can decide if someone can afford life-saving medicine or if they have to skip it. When the US passed the Affordable Care Act in 2010, it expanded health coverage to millions, but also shook the economy. Healthcare stocks reacted instantly, businesses adjusted, and insurance markets shifted. Every time politicians debated changing or repealing the law, it caused uncertainty. People didn't know if they'd lose coverage, and companies paused decisions. It showed how one political decision could impact industries, family budgets, and national health, almost overnight. 4. Pandemic stimulus checks. Who could forget the COVID-19 stimulus checks? In 2020, as the world shut down and economies stalled, political leaders in the US took unprecedented action. They approved trillions of dollars in emergency relief, including direct payments to individuals and families. The US federal government passed 3 major stimulus packages, each including economic impact payments, better known as stimulus checks. Here's how the numbers looked. March 2020, $1,200 per adult plus $500 per child. December 2020, $600 per person. And in March 2021, $1,400 per person. In total, over $930 billion was sent out in stimulus checks across all 3 rounds. For millions of Americans, this money was a lifeline, used to pay rent, cover groceries, or avoid falling behind on bills during lockdowns. And the effects were immediate. Consumer spending rose, poverty rates temporarily dropped, and the economy avoided a complete collapse. But it also sparked political debate. Some argued it was too much spending. Others said it wasn't enough. This proved that political decisions can inject hundreds of billions into the economy almost overnight. One vote in Congress can mean food on the table or lights staying on. That's the power of fiscal policy in real life. So, to conclude this video, politics isn't some distant game played by people in suits. It's a powerful force that shapes your economy, your paycheck, and your future. From government budgets to interest rates, elections to global conflicts, every political decision sends ripples through the economy, and those ripples hit us all. The more you understand this connection, the better equipped you are to navigate the ups and downs of today's world, and maybe even influence the outcome.
Hey guys, I'm David, I'm the founder of the channel and basically the one responsible for everything you just saw. And I hope you liked the video. If you did, give us a like and a subscribe. And if you have any questions or any ideas for future videos, let us know in the comments, and also give us your feedback in the comments as well. Bye guys, see you next time.